Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayemi KIDDUSHIN Chaf Aleph. We got up to the fourth line off the top of the Amud. Amarle Rav Acha Brei Rav Rav Ashi. I have a question. This is going back to the Brisa which mentioned a kal v'chomer. You see, the Torah allows a person to redeem his property, to refund, for instance, hegdish. We actually had 4 examples of pidyon, which is also called geula. It pertains to a person who's magdish his field, gives away his assets to the Beis Hamikdash. He can go back and redeem it. Selling a field to a friend allows for redemption. Selling a home, a bayis, for instance, a bayis in a walled city, which has its own status in the Torah, there also redemption, refunding its buyer, is par for the course. And 4th example is an eved who sold himself as a slave to a guy, or let's say to a yid. So redemption is all part of the deal. What about a partial redemption? He doesn't have enough to make a full bailout. What if he doesn't even have money at all and he wants to borrow the money? Can that work? Can he compel the customer to go and cooperate with him? Or does it need to be his own money? Or do we say it needs to be a full redemption, which is actually the definition of geula? Freedom, redemption, bailout, full. Either all or nothing. So that's the question we dealt with yesterday. And the Gemara brought a brisa which cited a pasuk. Im goyel yigal. It's a repetitious pasuk. It's a ribui, that by a magdish you can come back and be goyel, even if it involves borrowing the money, even if it involves a partial redemption. And the reason why we needed a pasuk is because otherwise we would learn from the other halachas that one cannot make a partial redemption. For instance, from the meicher sadeh achuz, he sells his estate, his field, or selling a bayis bebate oreichayma in a city with a wall which doesn't allow for these privileges. And that's why we need a pasuk. Magdish is different. Now the Gemara will now challenge this notion. Why would I think that Magdish can be compared to the others? And we had a kal v'chomer yesterday, and basically we were following up on that. You can differentiate between a home sold in a walled city where you can't, exercise these redemption options. You can differentiate between that and a magdish. A magdish is way different. You see there, the seller is at a grave disadvantage. Once his first year is up, once it's been sold for a year, he didn't exercise that redemption option, it's now permanently granted to the buyer. So he's at a big disadvantage. So now it makes sense that he doesn't have the other privileges as well. The Torah doesn't give him that much power. Magdish, as opposed to a person who gives away his field to hegdish, there, you have practically, unlimited amount of time to redeem the field until Yovel. So maybe he gets this privilege as well. You can do a partial redemption. You can't compare the two things. So why would I need a pasuk to allow, by hegdish? Why would I think otherwise? You can't compare it to the other case, to the bias. Amalei Rav Sabal Rav Ashi. So he responded like this: yes, we do need a pasuk. Otherwise, we would think that these redemption options do not apply to magdish. We can say like this: let's just sort of go back and forth. We'll make a ma'atzad, which basically means we'll discover a common denominator, a factor which is commonly found by both, by selling a field, which is called meicher sadeh achuz, and in the case of selling a home in a walled city. And that will provide the basis for this havamina, for this notion, to indicate that magdish as well cannot just go ahead and borrow money or do a partial redemption. That's why we need a pasuk that he can. Okay, let's see. So here we say that perhaps bias bebata rechayma doesn't really indicate much because there it's such a limited type of redemption. Well, 1 second. I can disprove that notion by pointing to a seller of a field, of a family plot. There as well, there's no limit in terms of his ability to redeem. He can redeem it until Yovel. And still, despite this advantage, we see he has a disadvantage. He can't borrow the funds needed for redemption, or he can't do a partial redemption, so perhaps by Magdish as well. And that's why we need a pasuk that Hegdish is different. Well, 1 second. Selling a field is totally different. Because there we find another weakness, so to speak. He has to wait. That's what it says in the Torah. He has to wait until his buyer enjoyed that farm for at least 2 years. So the seller is at a disadvantage. You can't just go and immediately redeem. So maybe it comes along with the other disadvantage of a partial redemption which cannot be done, as opposed to a Hegdish, where there's no minimum time limit. He can go right away and take it back. So maybe it has the other advantage as well. So you can't compare. Well, let's go look at the house that was sold, where there's no minimum time limit. He can go right away and buy it back, and still we find that he can't do the partial redemption. So basically, you can't say that this factor is the cause or the other factor is the cause. And let's sort of combine the two and say like this: we take the equation and we run it back and forth. The factor on this side of the equation doesn't necessarily provide the solution, because look, the other factor, the other side, the other example, the other halacha doesn't have that factor, and still it has the same limitation. So ultimately, that factor or this factor cannot be the reason. Rather, what's the common denominator? What is a common factor found in both? Which will provide the basis for Hegdish as well. In both cases, redemption is on the table. But it's limited. You can't borrow, you can't do partials. Likewise, I'll include Magdish. Redemption is an option, but still, you're limited. You can't borrow or do partials. That's what I would think. Comes the pasuk and says, Magdish is different. Well, at least we explained why we need a pasuk. Otherwise, we would think it doesn't work. Amalei Mazutri, Breder Rav Mari, Ravina. 1 second. You're equating Magdish to the other two examples, to selling a field or selling a home. Ikel Mifrach. You can differentiate once again between Magdish and the others. I'll provide you a common denominator found in those unfound in Hegdish, and therefore uncomparable. Listen to this. Can you redeem your field from the buyer during the second year? Can you redeem your home during the second year? And both, the answer is no, for different reasons. By the farm, it has to remain in his hands at least for 2 years before you can approach him for redemption. So second year is out. By the home, you only have that first year to redeem. Once second year arrives, you're out. So, in both, there's no redemption during second year. As opposed to a Magdish. He's not limited, he can go redeem it during that second year. So it's unequatable to the other two. No, because I can respond to that by saying like this. Instead of just combining Sadeh Achuzah with bias to prove that common equation, which can be transferred to Hegdish as well, which you said it doesn't work, it doesn't really pan out, doesn't work because they have something in common not found by Hegdish. Let's add another part to the equation. Eved Ivri Hanimkar Le'Eved Kecham Yichech. Let's add the Jewish slave sold to the guy. There's no limitation in terms of redemption on during the second year. You can do that. And still, nevertheless, you can't borrow or do a partial redemption. So let's sort of combine all three. Selling a field, selling a home, and the Evet sold to the guy. In all these, we find that you're limited. You can't borrow the funds, nor can you do a partial redemption. So perhaps Hegdish works the same way. That's why a pasuk is needed. Bottom line is like this. Selling a field, selling a home, selling an Evet, you can't borrow or do a partial redemption. But by Hegdish, we have a special pasuk. You can do that. Okay, let's move on to another topic. We find that at least twice, the Torah speaks about a relative coming and bailing you out. Number one, in a case where one sells himself as a slave to a guy, the Torah clearly speaks about a relative coming and bailing him out. Case B is when he sells a personal, farm. Machar ma'achuzasei. Once again, the pasuk speaks about goy alei, a relative coming and bailing you out. So in two cases, we know it can work, and you can force the buyer to cooperate. What about the other cases? What about if he sold himself to a yid? What about he sold a home in a walled city, which is treated different than just a plot of land? Do we apply the same idea? A relative can come along and compel the customer to cooperate and redeem, and accept a refund? You sell a home in a walled city in Eretz Yisrael. Can a relative come along and bail him out? Or not? Why yes? Why not? Perhaps we'll connect the two words. Geula that we find over here by bias to Geula we find by the Sadi Achuza. Geula Misdei Achuza. Gamar, we compare the two things and we say Ma Sadi Achuza Eina Negelas Lachatzoin V'Negelas L'Kriv, just like the Sadi Achuza cannot be redeemed partially, as we learned before. That's a given. But at the same time, a relative could come along and offer that redemption. Af Hainami here as well by the bias. Ein Nigel Chatzoin. You can't do a half redemption, like we basically said before, but has an advantage, has an upside to it. Nigel L'Kriv, a relative can come along and offer that bailout. That's one side of the equation. Or perhaps Hiksiva Geula. When do we compare and equate this to that? It's only regarding the definition of Geula. You can only do a full redemption, because that's the definition of Geula. But in terms of comparing it regarding the other halacha of relatives, perhaps that's not what the pasuk is talking about. You're right. Relatives have no say when it comes to a bias. We have a kash on you. Pasuk says, right? The pasuk reads, in all cases, Geula is applicable. Redemption, refunding is on the table. There's a riba here, trying to include something which is not clear. The rabbi's batim, bevet ivri, you sell yourself to a yid, or you sell your house. Geula is on the table. Now, my love, bate erichema. So the Gemara is assuming that even a evet ivri or a bias, bate erichema, are included in the halacha of Geula, of relatives coming and redeeming. Says the Gemara, no. Who says? Loi bate chatzerim. Perhaps it's speaking not about a bias in a walled city, rather we're speaking about a bias sitting out in an open, unwalled city, which is a totally different concept. Maybe over there we treat it, basically like a field. And therefore we apply Geulas Kroiv, but not by a bias, but bate arechem. Asks the Gemara, bate chatzerim, that type of open home, behedik sibu, alstei ha'aretz yichashev. We have another pasuk which classifies it like a farm. So of course there's Geula b'Kroivim, just like a stei achuz, there's no need to discuss it. Answers the Gemara, you're right. The reason why we rediscuss it is hahu, that pasuk is l'koiva yichayva, it's coming to obligate a relative. Look, your poor relative sold his home because he was financially strapped. Come along and redeem it. Get it back to him. It's a chayv. You're obligated to do so. So it's not just a nice thing to do. It's not just optional. It's obligatory. I'll leave it to Rabbi Lezer. We're going to Rabbi Lezer, who holds it as such. The Sanya. V'galas mimkar achiv. So his relative came along and redeemed the property. Rishus. It's optional. He doesn't have to do it. You're suggesting that it's optional? Maybe it's a chiv. Pasuk speaks about a person, redeeming his own property because he has no goyel, no relative to do so. Could that be? A person doesn't have a relative at all? Every yid has some relative, even a distant relative. So why is the pasuk speaking about a non-relative situation? Speaking, it has plenty of relatives, plenty of rich uncle. They're not interested. Very sure. Going to be sure it's optional. You can't force them. That's what the pasuk is speaking about. Rabbi Lezer Eimer, no. V'gal esmim kar achiv means chayva. He has to. If you could, you must do it. You're suggesting that it's obligatory. Maybe it's up to him. That's the pasuk we mentioned before. The Torah is now obligating him to do so. So bottom line is we had a question, a bias. Does it allow for relatives to come redeem? We thought we had a pasuk. No, the pasuk is coming to be mechayiv, a relative to come in the case of a sada, etc. But in the case of a bias in a walled city, we're not sure if that's applicable. Amrli Rabban Ravashi. But Amrli, some say it was Rabbeinu Ravashi. If we say that Gula B'Krevim is applicable even to a bias in a Irchayma, that explains the extra B'Krevim like we said before. But if you hold that the pasuk is not including the bias in a walled city, rather it's just coming like Rabbi Lazar to tell you, that an ordinary home, Bati Chatzerim, the unwalled cities, which are considered like a farm. Pasuk's telling you that a relative must do it. Chayva, right? Okay, very good, but why B'Koil? B'Koil sounds like we're trying to include another case, another situation. Not just a matter of repeating the halacha. Repetition tells you obligatory versus optional, fine. But B'Koil indicates inclusion. We're trying to include another case unmentioned until now. My B'Koil. Kasha, we leave it as a kash. Eis v'Abaye. Here comes another kasha from Abaye on Rav Sheshes, who tells us that there's no such a concept of gulas krevim in a bias irachayma. Why is the pasuk repeat itself 3 times? The rabbis call a gulas to include all sold items that conform to this system, which basically means that relatives come and redeem it. They have that option. My love, so what are these 3 things? What are all these cases? Right? So including everything, basically. Right? So the extra Yigalenus are coming to tell you we have other cases unmentioned. Bayis Batei Rechaima, Evedivri, who sold to Yisrael, which we had no clue about his Gula V'Krevim option. Here we do. So it's clearly applicable even to a Bayis Batei Rechaima, not like Rav Sheshes said. No, Loi Batei Chatzer Mistei Achuz. The pasuk is speaking about a home in an unwalled city. We're speaking about a stei achuzah, some sort of field, but not a bias in an irchayma. Why do we need an extra pasuk for that? We have a clear pasuk. I'll stay at Eretz Chashiv. Right? So stei achuzah is clear. Right? We know Krevim can come and redeem. There's a pasuk for that. And Bati Chatzerim, well, the Torah treats it, classifies it like a stei achuzah. Why would we need a special pasuk, if not to include bias be'ir chayma? Answers the Gemara. No. You're 100% right. We already know gulas krevim by the sada, but perhaps the pasuk is adding a new dimension to tell you that a relative, in terms, the closer you are, the closer a relative you are to this destitute seller, the more you're obligated to come in, step in, and bail him out. Because the Omar of Nachman Yitzchak, as Nachman Yitzchak tells us later on, regarding a different context, but the pasuk is telling you that the closer you are to this fellow, the more you are obligated. Hachanami here as well. In fact, the Torah repeats itself. Yigalenu 3 times. Hachanami the closer you are, you must come and redeem his farm, the more obligated you are to do so. Hey, Chayitmad of Nachman Yitzchak, where do we find that drush? Regarding a different discussion. The question was like this. Until now we spoke about a bias and a Yerachayma. What about an Evet Ivri? Hanem Kali Yisrael. A Jewish slave sold to a Yid. Nigal Krevim? Or Yain Nigal Krevim? Is this Gulas Krevim applicable or not? Now, I'll leave it to Rebbe. According to Rebbe's Shita, we discussed a couple of days ago, there's no question that it doesn't apply. Because he clearly said so. The Omar, because in his Brayis on Daf Tezvav, he told us that Mi she'eina nigal be'ela. Ela is referring to what's mentioned earlier in the pasuk, Gulas Krevim. So one who sold to Yisrael who doesn't have the Gulas Kravim option, Nigal B'Sheish, you can still go free once 6 years are up. So bottom line is it's pretty clear. Amalei Mifrak, he holds that Nivukal Yisrael doesn't have Gulas Kravim. Kiti Boil, the question applies leave the Rabbanon. The other shittas who don't learn the psukim the way he did it. Mais, that's the question. Yalfinan Sachir Sachir. Do we make that connection, that link between Meichel Yisrael and Meichel Goy through the Sachir Sachir Gzera Shava? And they don't focus on the word Yigalenu, which sort of excludes a Nimkal Yisrael. Or perhaps they do focus on the word Yigalenu, which is mentioned by a Yisrael Nimkal Goy. Only Eved Yisrael sold to a Goy has the relative redemption option. But not the other fellow who sold to a Yid. So that's the question. Which way is it? Tashma, we'll try to prove it from the following price, which focuses on that pasuk that we had before. Ubechoil Geula Titnu, which includes other types of cases for a Geula. The Rabbi's Batim, Eved Ivri. Relatives can come in and bail out. When a home was sold, when an Eved Ivri was sold, Ma'ila Bate Rechaima, Eved Ivri, and Imkal Yisrael. Perhaps we're speaking about a bias in a walled city. A slave sold to Yisrael. There's your answer. It works. No, says the Gemara, Eved Ivri, I'm Nimkal Eved Kechavim. We're speaking specifically about an Eved sold to a Goy. That's where relatives step in. Well, for that you need a new pasuk. We already know that. It's a whole parsha about it. Eved Ivri and Nimkal Eved Kechavim B'ed Yiksibe. There's a whole pasuk which lists all his possible saviors. A Doida, his uncle, a Ben Doida, his cousin, Yigalenu. So why do we need a new pasuk for that? Well, says the Gemara, who? The new pasuk of Bakoil is coming to tell you something, well, to make it obligatory. Remember, Rabbi Yeshua told us a couple of minutes ago, when it comes to one who sold his property, although a relative can come and redeem it, but he's not chayiv to do so. But when he sold himself to a guy, that's really desperate. That's important to get him out of there ASAP. So therefore, here the Torah says, look, Bakoil Gula Tintum, get the relative, get him over quickly to redeem his nephew. But we still haven't proven regarding an Eved Ivri and Nimkal Yisrael. Tashma. Here comes another attempt. Ma'atam Olema Yigalenu. Why does it say Gimel Pa'am Yigalenu? L'Rabbeis Kol HaGuloish and Nicholas Keseder. Is that to tell you that this type of Geula, meaning relatives, being involved in redeeming, applies to all types of sales and situations. My love, we're assuming it's referring to all types of sales. But Eved Ivri and Nimkal Yisrael, and that proves our question. So the no, maybe we're speaking about ordinary home, we're talking about a farm. Well, for that we don't need a new pasuk. We have psukim for that. A farm is redeemed by relatives. A house in an ordinary situation is like a sada. Why do we need a new pasuk? If it's not coming to include the elusive Eved Ivri and Nimkal Yisrael. Amar Rachmar Yitzchak. No, maybe it's just speaking about those cases and coming to add a new twist, the Karev Kaidim, to indicate that the closer you are to this fellow, you have to come and redeem him. The closer you are, the more you're obligated. Okay, so bottom line is, we left it inconclusive. We know that an Eved Ivri and Nimkal Eved Kechavim can be redeemed by relatives. Likewise, a Stei Achuzah can be redeemed by relatives. What about Eved Ivri and Nimkal Yisrael? What about a Bayis Batei Rechaima? We're not sure. Okay, now we're back to the Mishnah Daf Yudalad. All methods of acquisition of the Eved, all methods of exit. Vanirtza Nikna B'Ritzia. How do you acquire an Eved Nirtza who opted to stay on past his 6-year term? Through Ritzia, through piercing his ears. His ear. His right ear. Clear pasuk. How does he leave you? But Yovel, if the 50th year arrives, the master passes away, he doesn't get carried over to the kids. He's your master, he's your Eved. But not transferable to the kids. The pasuk says Avadid Li'aylam doesn't mean forever and ever. It means like Lama Shel Yovel, which is a sort of a full cycle of the years up to the Shemitah, the Yovel year, and then he goes free. Taner Rabbanan. We speak about Ritzia, the piercing, the drilling. How does that work? Taner Rabbanan. Maratzeya. The pasuk speaks about a Maratzeya, some sort of utensil used to pierce. So perhaps you can only use the this proper tool, this metal piercer. What about other types of improvised tools? Marayin l'Rabbeis hasul, some sort of pointy wooden pick. V'asira. What about a thorn? V'amacha, the needle. V'makdeach, some kind of drill. V'amichtav, metallic writing utensil. Do they work for ritzia? Yeah. Tamulayim v'lakachta, any sort of item can work. L'rabbi is kol davar shenikach b'yad, anything you could use. Pick anything up and use it. Rabbi Yehuda. That's his sheet. Rabbi Omer has to be made of metal. Ma martzea. All other options have to be comparable, have to contain an element which is equated with the martzea. What's unique about the martzea? Ma martzea miyuchad shel mateches. It's unique in the sense that it's made of mateches, iron. Af kol shel mateches, likewise, any metallic item works. But if it's not mateches, for instance, the wooden pick, you can't use that. Davar acher, some take out davar acher, hamartzea. What's the word hamartzea? The extra hey coming to tell you. Lahavia martzea agadla, you can use this jumbo-sized martzea, despite the fact that it wreaks havoc, it makes a large hole, you can use that as well. Rabbi Elazar, he tells us like this. There was a big chacham called Yudan. Yudan Beribi, the Gadol Hador, the greatest of the generation, Hayodirish. He would teach us as follows. This was his input. Kishain writes him. You know, when they pierce his ear, where do they do it? On the soft, earlobe, or further up? Can you do it at the hard, section, right through the cartilage? Where do you do it? Ein writes him milsa, only on the soft part. So that's his opinion. But the Gemara continues that the Chachamim disagreed. Ein eved ivri kain nirtza. We happen to know this halacha. This was something, a kabbalah from our rabbis, that an eved ivri, who happens to be a kain, cannot undergo the piercing process. Why? Because it's going to disqualify him from serving the Beis HaMikdash, right? A kohen who has a visible blemish cannot serve. And Ritzia makes him into a blemished person. Right? So that's the Kabbalah we have. Ritzia cannot be applied to a kohen because it's going to make him a balmum, which is unacceptable. Now, what does that tell you in terms of where? In terms of the location of the Ritzia? It has to be a permanent blemish. So it can't be that it's taking place on his earlobe, which is not really a mum. That's the halach. The earlobe is a soft area. That doesn't constitute a mum if it's pierced. If you're going to suggest that they pierce down at the lobe, so why is the eved ivri disqualified from ritzia? It's going to turn him to balmum. There's no balmum. That proves that ritzia takes place higher up in the air. Okay, before we focus on this, let's just go back to the first machlekes in the brayso. We had two machlekes here, right? One is regarding the utensil, the type of drill they use, and then we discuss location. So let's just review quickly. So in terms of the martzea, Rabbi says it must be shel mateches. Rabbi Yehuda says any piercing item works. But my kamiflagi, what's the machlekes about? What's it based on? The Rabbi Dorish klali uprati. Rabbi works with the generalization and itemization system, klal uprat, as follows. Pasuk begins with a general, reference. V'lokachta, take whatever you want to pierce his ear. Klal, it's a klal, the general term. Then the pasuk itemizes, specifies martzea, prat. But then the pasuk goes back to generalizing again. Some put in the word v'nasata, v'oznei, v'delos, pierce right through his ear into the door, without specifying what type of tool to use. So it's general, specific, and general. Chazar v'kol. So what do? Klal prat klal. We apply the formula called klal prat klal. And Torah is telling you, look, you don't have to stick to that item, to that specific item. You can use many, options as long as it's somewhat similar to the item mentioned. Ma prat, just like the item is mefura shel mateches, af kol shel mateches. What is unique about the item mentioned? The martzea was made of metal. You want to use a different tool? Be my guest, but it has to qualify. It has to be mateches. Whereas Rabbi Yossi, he works with a different system. Darash ribuya yemiute. He works with a different type of formula, inclusive and exclusive, which ends up giving you much more. So again, we go through the 3 stages of the pasuk. We begin with lakachta, which is riba. It's including all types of utensils. Then we have specifics. Martzea, which is a miyat. We're excluding others other than martzea. And then we go v'nasata ba'azne badelas, which is again an inclusive term. Chazav riba, umiyat riba. We have a inclusive, exclusive, and inclusive. Riba hakol, we pretty much include everything. So we end up including much more. It doesn't have to really qualify. It doesn't have to match the itemized detail. It has to be somewhat similar. We want to sort of include everything except for something which is way off, right? So my Rabbi, what's included? Rabbi Kol Mili, any type of utensil. Wooden, non-wooden, it works. But we have to exclude something. After all, the Torah is trying to tell you to be selective. My miyad, well, what's the farthest option that's totally dissimilar than to a tool, to a martzea? Miyad sam. You use some sort of some sort of chemical which pierces his ear. That doesn't work. It needs to be has to be an act of piercing with a tool. Amamar, and the Brisa continued, Ha martzea lahavi martzea gadol. Use a jumbo martzea. My mashma. How do you see a jumbo martzea? Could the Amar Rav, like Rav told us somewhere else. This was regarding gid hanasha. Is it on his right or on his left? It says hayarech. The hay tells you the unique one. Ham yumena shebiyarech. The animal's right gid hanasha is the one that's asur. So hay highlights hachanami. Here as well it says hamartzea. Well, highlighting miyuchad shebe martin, the unique one, the big one, the jumbo one. You can use that as well. Okay, now as far as location, Amar Rav Elazar, Yudin B'Ribi Yiderish, he would tell us, Kshein Reitzin, where would Ritzia take place? Ein Reitzin El Milsa, down at the lobe, the soft part. Chacham Ayrim, no, Ein Evet Ivri Koyin Nirtza. We know that an Evet Koyin cannot experience Ritzia. It makes him a Balmum, which indicates that you pierce, where it makes a blemish, up at the cartilage. Okay, that proves their point, but question: who says you can't make a kohen evet a balmum? There's no isra in making a balmum, right? V'yasa balmum. Who's to say that he can't do ritzia because of that? Amar Rabba Bar Shila, the pasuk says so. Amar Kra v'shaval mishpachtei. After piercing his ear, he's done his next stint till yavel, a regular evet nirtza. He goes back to his family, to his earlier status, missing nothing. Lemuchzak shav mishpachtei. Back to the same status within his family as he had before. Now, apparently, you can't change his status. You can't turn him into a Balmum, which will disqualify him from joining his family in the Avodah in the Mikdash. So, a Kohen Evet cannot have Ritzia. Next question regarding an Evet Kohen. Ibaylu, Evet Ivri Kohen. Let's say you have a Jewish slave who happens to be a Kohen. We know that ordinarily a master can pair him up with these Shifcha Kananis. Does it apply to a Kohen as well? Perhaps he's more limited, more restricted. He's elevated. Shall we say, sure, Chiddush, the whole thing is something really unique. Typically, a Jewish boy doesn't pair up with a Shifcha Kananis, so perhaps an Evet works, on a different track. Lo Yishna Kayhanam, Lo Yishna Yisrael, whether he's a Kohen or Yisrael, he's an Evet. And it's permissible. Shall we say, no, Shani Kayhanam are still different. Hoyel v'ribu ben akosav mitzvahs yisrael. We find the Torah gave them so many more mitzvahs. They're meant to keep higher standards than the rest of us. So which way is it? Rav Amar muter, it's okay. Shmuel Amar asa, it's not okay. Amar li Rav Nachman li Rav Ana. I find this to be strange that Shmuel would say it's asur. Ki avisu be'mar Shmuel. I bet you when you were spending time learning Torah from Shmuel, you weren't really paying attention. Pretty harsh statement. Bis kumadri. You were just playing with some, chips, some cards or something. It's halalisa, you were just playing around. You weren't paying close attention. I find it hard to believe that Shmuel would forbid the Evet from interacting with a shifcha. You know why? My time fine, I believe he said it, but why didn't you respond to him? Why didn't you challenge him? We just had a brais. Ein Evet ivri kohen nirtza. You can't do ritzia on an Evet who's a kohen. Why? Like we said, Mishanasa Balmum. That's the reason. And that's the only reason. Well, according to Shmuel, there's another more basic reason why he can't become a Nirtza. If he can never have a Shifcha Kananis to begin with, then he can't be expressing his wish. Well, I want to stay on with her. It's not applicable to the Kohen if he's Asr and a Shifcha Kananis. So how could he ever become an Evet Nirtza? If it's true that a Eved who's a Kohen can't live with a Shifra Kananis, typically, then in any case he can never go to the next stage of becoming an Eretz Adabayinu, because we need that declaration. Look, I want to stay on with my master, my wife, which wife? The Shifcha. He can't have a Shifcha. Valeka. It's not applicable to him. Tue May. No more need to be said, says Rav Nachman to Rav Anan. This proves my point. Apparently, an Eved Ivri, who happens to be a Kohen, is no different than Eved Ivri Yisrael. He's paired up with a Shifcha, and certainly can have the Ritzia experience. Sorry. Ultimately, he can't, because he can't become a Balmum. But that's the only reason. If not for that reason of the Balmum, there would be no other obstacle in his way. He can say Ahafti es Ishti because he can marry Sheva Kananis. So that proves my point that it's mutter, even to an Eved Kohen. Here comes another similar question. Kohen mahu biyifas toyar. We all know the psukim at the beginning of Pashas Kiseitze describes a fellow who was at war, and he was attracted to that non-Jewish woman. The Torah says, look, you're human, Hashem understands your weaknesses, and if you feel compelled to, you can take her, and ultimately take her as a wife. A Kohen. Can he involve himself in this process? Kohen ma'u b'yifas toyar. Shall we say, yeah, he's no different than a Yisrael. KIDDUSHIN. This whole thing is an anomaly, it's something unusual. Lo yishna Kohen, lo yishna Yisrael, which applies equally to all, whether you're a Kohen or Yisrael. Or perhaps, no, Kohen has higher standards. Shani Kohanim are different, as we said before. So which way is it? Rav Amar, it's okay. For a Kohen as well, mutter. Shmuel Amar Asr. Explains the Gemara. Be a Rishona. Regarding their first time physically together, the Kuli Amalei Pliga Deshari all agree that it's mutter even for a Kohen, because after all, the whole point is to alleviate his urge. The whole point is, Torah understands the human condition. Rashi says over here, about 10 lines from the bottom, Dibra Torah, lo yetira sel b'shvil yetzer hara. We're addressing the reality of the yetzer hara. Shim lo yatira yavral hasara. Torah knows if he might be tempted to the point that he's going to violate the Yisr. The Pasuk clearly describes this fellow as being attracted to her. She Yetzer hara, Mizgara boy, he's tempted by Yetzer hara. Hilchach, so therefore we applied equally to a Yisrael or a Kohen. B'Kohen nami k'lamechash Yetzer hara v'shari. The same temptation applies to a Kohen. He's no different. He's no higher in that sense. So if the point is to address this concern, then the Kohen has the option as well. So Bia Rishona, there's no question. The question is, once they had that first experience, can he continue on with her? That's the machlekes. Rav Amar, yeah, mutter. Shmuel Amar Asr. Explains the Gemara. Rav Amar mutter, even a Kohen is mutter to stay unmarried with her. Hoyel v'yishtari, because once the Torah stamped her as permissible, once the Torah issued the heter, opened the door, that's it. It's mutter. Shmuel Amar Asr. Shmuel says no, it's different. The first time around, she was really a guy. The Torah made an exception. But it's a one-time exception, because if he wants to stay on with her as a husband and wife, then she's put through a conversion process, right? She's a Geyeris, and a Geyeris cannot marry a Kohen. The Havila Geyeris. And we know that the Geyeris to a Kohen, the Kohen lechazia. Therefore, she's Asr. So according to this version, Bia Rishon is mutter according to all Shittas. Bia Shnia is a machlekes. Rav says mutter, Shmuel says also. Regarding a Kohen, of course. Ikadamri, there's a second version of this discussion. Their second time around. Meaning after that first encounter, he can't stay on with her. A Kohen is not allowed to be with this Giyaris. Dahavil Giyaris, who is incompatible with a Kohen. He pligi Bia Rishon. The question is, can they be physically together one time? Rav Amar, yeah, mutter. As we explained before, the whole point is to counter the Yetzer hara's temptation, the haloi dibra Torah, elaka neged Yetzer hara. Therefore, Kohen and Yisrael all in the same boat. Shmuel Amar no, Asr. Yisrael is allowed, but not a Kohen. You know why? Because a Kohen cannot put her through the entire process. with the ultimate marriage. If we can apply phase 2, take her as a wife, which can't apply to a kohen, as we explained, in that case, Karina Bey Varisa Beshivya, then we apply the first part as well. He notices her in captivity and he takes her. So only Yisrael can actualize phase 2, can do phase 1. But a kohen cannot actualize phase 2, he can't marry her. Phase 1 doesn't apply as well, she's totally off limits to him. Okay, on the topic of Yifas Toyar, the Brisa will provide a couple more examples, a couple more details. What's involved in this concept? Tan Rabbana Barisa Bashivya. Bishas Shivya. Torah specifies he took notice of her while she was taken captive, meaning at that point he already intended to marry her. But if initially he took her, to be moicher her as a shivcha, and then he changed his mind, he changed his plan, that doesn't work. See, the initial possession, taking her, has to be with this in mind. The pasuk continues. Eishas means I feel Eishas, even if she's a married woman, married to a guy, it's mutter. The words Yifas Toyar are indicating to us that he's attracted to her. Like the Torah, Ella connected to her, like I explained before. The Torah opts for this option, even though it's not preferred, but it's the better of the two options. Mutav sheyechul Yisrael basar tmusais. Tmusais is lashon of like mace, an animal who was in a precarious state of health, about to die. Shechting this animal, even though technically it's mutar, but it's not preferred. In fact, Yecheskel Hanavi prided himself for keeping away from these types of animals. But it's better. It's the lesser of the two evils. While yoichel basar tmusis nevelas, rather than eating an animal who died as a nevela, was never shechted. So it's a parable. It's a mashal. The Torah says, look, he might be tempted to do something worse. Let's give him that allowance. V'choshakta. He was attracted to her. He had a desire. Even though perhaps in reality she's not attractive, but he has his temptation, and that's what counts. The puzzle continues. V'choshakta ba. Ba. V'loi ba v'chaverta. He can't take two. The pasuk says, v'lokachta. Likuchen yesh lecha ba. If you choose, you can take her as a wife. You can actually acquire her as a wife. The words l'chala isha tell you, shelo yikach shtei nashim. Achas loy v'achas lavav. He can't take two, one for himself and one to give to his father or to a relative. Achas loy v'achas lavav. One for himself, one for his son. It's only a one-time thing. One isha, that's it. The pasuk continues, v'avesa al teich b'yisecha, teaches you malamed shelo yilchat tzana. You shouldn't compel her to be with him physically out there at the war theater. Rather, he has to be involved with her consent in a settled environment. Okay, let's recap today's daf. We started with Gula L'chatzoin, which is only allowed by Hegdish, as opposed to Meicher Stei Achuza, Meicher Bayis, Batei Rechaim, or Eved Ivri Animkar. Regarding Gulas Kroiv, we know that it applies to one who sold a field. It applies to an Eved who was sold to a guy. What about sold to a Yisrael? We're not sure. What about a Bayis and a Rechaima? We're not sure. Must a relative redeem? Well, optional, according to some, obligatory, according to others. And karev koidem, the closer you are, the more you should be taking responsibility. Okay, we moved on to the Eved Nirtza. We discussed the specific utensils to be used. We discussed the exact location of that pierce. We discussed whether it can apply to a kohen. And we discussed whether Eishas Yifas Toyar applies to a kohen or just to Yisrael. And on that topic, we elaborated further on the details. When, where, and how the Eishas Yifas Toyar is mutter. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.